Hey, everybody, welcome back to AWS On Air. I am Todd Fortier. I'm one of your hosts, and I'm joined by my good friend Gunnar Grosch, who is joining us for live here at the Reinforce 2025. And this is a recorded content, but if you're in the chat, we want to hear from you still. So keep the questions going. We're going to be answering them live from Philadelphia. But Gunnar, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Todd. Great to be here.
Thanks. So we're going to be talking about some security pipelines. We're going to be getting into it real quickly. But before we do that, why don't we have you introduce yourself and what do you do here at AWS?
Yes. So, as you said, my name is Gunnar Grosch. I am a developer advocate at AWS. I'm part of developer relations or developer experience. And what I do is I get to go around and talk to developers and basically see what they're doing, how they're doing it, and hopefully be able to inspire them a bit about the art of the possible with AWS and bring a lot of stuff back into our service teams and hopefully then improve what we're doing so developers can do even more.
Yeah, I like that. So you advocate on behalf of the developer, make sure that AWS is working on the right things. What do our customers want? We always work backwards from customers here at AWS. And so that's your role, is to go out there and engage that community. I mean, it's really all of our roles. We're all kind of talking to builders at some point in our careers, but you're specifically doing that. So how does that apply to what we're going to be talking about today?
Well, today we're going to be talking about pipelines and from a security perspective, because every developer out there, they want to build stuff and they want to push it out to production so that their customers can start using it. But we're kind of sometimes not super eager to talk about security as developers, but I think we should. So we're going to look at how we can perhaps bring security up as that most important part of what we're actually doing as developers.
Yeah, Gunnar, I mean, you hit the nail on the head there for me. I was a developer for 12 years before I started my tenure here at AWS. And I can tell you, security is one of those things where it's like, I knew it was necessary to get to production, but it wasn't always my first thought. But it is here at AWS. We say security is job zero. But so anything you have to make that easier for us developers and builders on the AWS would be great. So I understand you got a demo. Should we bring up your screen and start walking through what we mean by pipelines?
Let's bring it up straight away. So this is one of our tools in the code suite, and this is a code pipeline. So what we're seeing on the screen right now is a delivery pipeline. Basically, what takes over when you as a developer push something into a Git repository. So it's a fairly simple pipeline, but we've added some cool stuff into it to see how we can perhaps make things more secure before we push it out to production. So what we got is our source stage. That's where we're fetching something from, in this case, GitHub, our Git repository. Then we have a couple of stages that are focused on security. We'll get into those in just a bit. Then we have the build stage, where we're taking whatever code we've pushed into production to build that, make it ready to actually then deliver into our different environments. And we have it in two different stages for this one. We have a beta stage, but that could be a dev, it could be a staging, it could be a gamma, whatever you call it. And many companies have lots of different stages. In this case, we have a beta one, which is where we perhaps testing stuff out before we actually push it into the last stage, which is our prod stage, where we then get it out to our customers.
Okay. So I think I got you here. Let me catch up to speed here. We are logged into the AWS console. We've navigated to a service called Code Pipeline, and here at AWS, that is how we do DevOps around here. If you've ever done DevOps on AWS, I'm sure you're familiar with Code Pipeline. And we're going to pass the code that our team went on and developed. We're going to pass it through a series of steps before we can get to production. And one of those steps, presumably, is going to be security. So, okay, I think I'm caught up. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's a great summary. So, right now I pushed some code through it just to see that it works, and everything is green, which is great. That's usually a good sign. So right now it's ready to go into production as well. We've actually have a manual approval step towards the end, so let me just approve that. So whatever code I pushed earlier, well, that is now going into production. So congratulations to our customers, I guess, in this case.
So nice. A very clean pipeline you got there.
It's super clean. Yeah.
Nice.
So I want to show you these different stages then. So this one, that's called static security. That is a stage where we're using another of our code services, in this case, code build. Code build is a service that the name suggests it's meant for building. So it's actually spinning up containers for you, and then those containers will run commands. It could be, for instance, preparing a container image, or it could be other stuff. But code build has become a tool that we're using for other things as well. Like I said, it can run commands, so we can do a lot of cool stuff with code build. So what I'm doing with it here is doing a bunch of static security checks. So there are a lot of different things we can do to make sure that our code is secure. So what I've done is created a list of different commands that we're running. And that could be everything from linting to then doing checks towards these different types of static security checkers that are out there. Another common one is obviously when it comes to security and vulnerabilities, it is that we're using libraries, third-party libraries that aren't very secure. So in this stage, we're also doing what's called I'm using JavaScript in this case, Node.js. So I'm using NPM as my package manager. Then I can do an NPM audit in this stage to make sure or check if there are any vulnerabilities in the packages that I'm using. So code build in this case are running the different commands that I'm telling it to do. ESLint, for instance, in this case, checking for errors in my code. We're also doing, here we go, an NPM audit, and then get a bunch of results back. And it's common that we get a bunch of results, things that are perhaps not secure, but then it obviously comes down to how critical is this? Is it something that's of low criticality or higher than that?
And yeah, this is really important. This is a really important thing. It's a really cool thing. Like code build, we can provide it a build spec. We can go and download prerequisites, maybe dependencies that we're going to need in order to build the project. Yep. And then within that, we can issue commands to say, hey, before you like publish any artifacts to any S3 bucket anywhere, before you're done, run through these series of checks. And I think that dependency analysis is really important because, as we know, at least before we're using open source tooling, not only do we have our direct dependencies, but those dependencies can have dependencies. And so there's this really complex graph that ends up being developed, a dependency graph that ends up occurring. And we want to make sure not just our code is secure, but every single thing in that graph is not saying, hey, you need to look out for something here. It's been exposed at this lower level of the graph. And so exactly. Really cool, kind of cool to automate that as a part of my pipeline.
Yeah, and exactly like you say, if I'm using a package, I'm sure there's going to be 3 or 4 or 10 or 20 downstream packages as well that's used for that. And keeping track of that by yourself, well, that's kind of impossible.
Yeah, it gets hairy pretty quickly.
Then once we have done all of these checks, we can add as many as we want, of course. Then we can get all of these findings. And what I'm doing next then is sending all of these to another AWS service that's called AWS Security Hub. So let me open up Security Hub. And there we go. Let's see if Security Hub is with us.
Yeah, usually we get some suggestions here, but it looks like we're saying this is a live demo. That's how we do these shows. We do live demos. So when stuff doesn't work, you get to see that in action. But just maybe a simple page refresh would solve our problem here.
Yeah, seems like. All right. So what we do then is gather all of those results, and then we send them to Security Hub. And Security Hub is, as the name suggests, it's a hub, a center for everything security related at AWS. So in this, we have a section for findings, and this is where we send our different findings. So let me just remove some filters, and then we can see that these are findings that we've created and pushed into Security Hub. So these are now the latest ones. Here we go. 8 minutes ago.
Okay, so code build did the work, but then it pushed its findings into Security Hub. And Security Hub is nice because it can consolidate from a number of AWS services to make sure that we're kind of seeing everything in a single pane here.
Exactly. So
Nice.
we can then list them based on severity, and obviously we can see where they're coming from. In this case, it's from a container scan, but also from code build a bit further down, I'm sure. So that's what we're doing in that first stage. And if we then want to automate this completely, we will make sure that if there are things of a certain severity level, that could be maybe 10 high, or it could be 1 critical, then we just abort the pipeline at that stage. Because we don't want something to go into production, obviously, if it has some sort of security vulnerability. So part of that script for code build, in this case, would then check and count the number of errors that we find, or findings, and then abort the pipeline if needed.
Yeah, certainly automating in code build and DevOps is all about this automating so that I don't have to. But I've certainly had my fair share of horror stories when getting to production, especially if I had to manually do that. And I kind of want to hear from our audience. What kind of DevOps horror stories can you share with us? Or what is something that you had to automate within code build or any other DevOps pipeline? I think that'd be really cool to share those stories. So if you're uh, paying attention or listening, drop that comment in the chat, and I'd love to hear from you. But go ahead, Gunnar.
Yeah, so that's our first stage there. So a static check. And those are fairly simple checks to do, but we want to fail fast, just like with everything else. So that's why we have that as our first stage. It's taking the source code, running through these checks. If there are critical things, we can fail the pipeline straight away. If it doesn't, well, then we pass on to the next stage. And there we're using another service called Amazon Code Guru. Amazon Code Guru is a service that's making use of a bunch of different techniques to then validate our code. And Code Guru has a new feature in preview that's called Amazon Code Guru Security. So previously we've used what's called Reviewer and Profiler. That's been more focused on the kind of how you write your code, making sure that code is efficient, that it's running in ways that are as good as possible, basically, focusing on performance and similarly. But the new feature within security, well, that is all about security, and that's really what we want in this case. So in the same way as previously, we are then setting up a stage, we're using code build again, and then we are using the CLI to call Code Guru in this case. So we are taking that source code, sending it away to Code Guru, so it will then scan through for security issues. And in the same way as previously, it will then send us a report back with findings. So Code Guru in this case makes use of known vulnerabilities, but it's also using machine learning, or even, I guess, generative AI in this case, to check the code for any type of vulnerabilities, which is a bit more advanced type of check compared to just those static checks that we did before.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I like that idea of failing fast. In fact, that's what they called me in college, Todd Fail Fast 4-tier. I'm always trying to break it and move fast and get onto that next thing, and then figure out what went wrong and make sure I have a stable pipeline. So this is a really cool way to do that. And Code Guru is a really awesome service using machine learning that says that looked back at history of all the code that's been not all the code, but uses code and patterns that it finds in machine learning. And now we have this added component of generative AI to give us that little nudge, and even to a more secure and more resilient kind of code base, which I think is like amazing that this magic just sort of happens. I'm old enough to remember like all these things that we had to do before, and now it just kind of like magically occurs through some CLI somewhere. Probably would be an MCP server after this too, but
Sure.
Anyways, Gunnar, that's a different episode of the show. But Gunnar, so we've sent it off to Code Guru, and it's done some analysis. What's next there?
Yeah, so then once Code Guru is done, and this isn't a long process. It obviously depends on the amount of code that you're sending to it, but we're talking maybe a minute or 2 or 3 before you have the findings back, depending on the size of your source code. Then you get findings back like this. And in this case, we can see that we have actually some high and some critical and some medium findings, which means that the code that we sent there, well, it's probably not code that we want to send further along because it has a critical flaw. So in this case, well, we would activate that feature to be able to just fail the pipeline at this point when we got that finding. And then the developer gets a notification back that the pipeline failed, and then you can look into what is this issue. The CWE94 unsanitized input is run as code. Doesn't sound great, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, sanitary code only, please. So, Gunnar, I have a question for you. So, do these results from Code Guru also get pushed to Security Hub?
Yes, they do. So we send them to Code Guru as well. So they also show up in Security Hub. I mean, so they show up as findings there as well. So we gather all of these findings, no matter where we're doing them, in that same way.
Okay, cool. So we want to make sure we're failing our pipeline if there are insecure code getting through our pipeline before we go to production. So that's like, in my head, that's the big headline here. We don't want to release insecure code into production. And so these services and these steps along our pipeline are going to help us make sure that we don't do that.
Exactly.
Nice.
And then we have the next step, which is build. There could be a bunch of other security steps as well. These are two examples of how we can do it with a very static type of check, just CLI command, or we can use another fully managed service like Code Guru to do it as well. Then we have our build step. And in this case, I've built an application using AWS SAM, but this could be any type of application. But what we're doing here is building the code based on the specific commands that are needed. And we're creating a container image that we're pushing into ECR. And ECR is our container registry. And what we can do then as well, when we're pushing stuff there, is that we can activate security scans on that image as well. So once we're pushing it, in this case, this is the latest one. We've pushed it into our container registry where we're storing the image. We're then doing an automated scan on that image as well. And we can see it similarly, we're finding critical errors with that container image.
Yeah,
and that
cool. So,
finding, once again, into Security Hub.
Security Hub. That's where we're ended up in the hub. I mean, it's a good name. So really, security is an end-to-end thing. We want to analyze the code as it comes in, make sure we're no sense in building it if it's insecure out of the gate. So then once we build it, we also want to make sure that the output is secure in the resulting build, so that security is happening all throughout the pipeline. And so this is really cool, Gunnar, but we only have a few minutes left. I want to make sure that you get to everything you want to get to, and then we let folks know where they can go to learn more.
Yeah. So then once we have these checks all in place, then like we said, we're pushing everything to Security Hub. A stage that we could add here as well is one that's actually towards the end, before we're doing that deployment, we could do a check towards Security Hub. What are the findings we have for this entire pipeline? And then that would be something that the approver in the end looks at before they actually approve something to go into production. In this case, we had some critical ones, so it should probably be stopped way before. But having that opportunity to automate that as well, using a Lambda function that's called through the pipeline, I think that's an awesome way of doing it. We could even add in some Bedrock there and have that generate something that's in perhaps more readable format than just getting those CWE numbers, so you know exactly how to act once you get that notification as well.
Nice. So we can consolidate all of these findings into a single place, and then there's opportunity to extend this pipeline to make that easier to consume, have some go, no-go decisions. Maybe there's some things that it found, but it's worth the risk. It's not a major thing, but certainly maybe we want to address some of the critical things before we go to production. But very cool. So how do I learn more about building pipelines? How do I learn more about securing pipelines? Where should our audience go to take a next step here?
Yes, so we have some cool resources for you. We'll share the links in the chat where you can look at a security pipeline and resources to actually just deploy one yourself, where you can pick and choose the things you want to use in there. I think that's a great way to get started. besides that, I think it's a great thing to look at security even at the developer stage. So we've talked previously about Q Developer as well a lot. I think Q Developer as a way to help you build more secure code before you push it into production. That's a great way to get started as well.
Yeah, very cool, Gunnar. Hey, well, thanks for coming on and showing us security in code pipeline and building secure pipelines. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your Reinforce. I'll see you around.
Thank you.
Thanks.